Hi guys, today we are going to talk about Bitcoin, whether it's going to $20,000 or $150,000, and what's going to happen to altcoins. Is alt season coming within a month, or do we need a plan B to save our portfolio? Right now Bitcoin is trading around $90,000, and for the past 2 months we have been stuck in a very tight range between $84,000 and $95,000. The price action over the last few weeks looks like a meme coin with $7,000 market cap, as if nobody is trading it at all. What's happening now looks very similar to what we saw before the previous alt season, even though it feels like the cycle is different. Let's start with this. Bitcoin is currently repeating the 2021 pattern. In 2023, Bitcoin rallied from $25,000 to $70,000 and then traded in roughly around 30% range for more than half a year. At the same time, back in January 2021, Bitcoin moved from $10,000 to $40,000 and traded in a similar range, about 35%, but only for around a month and a half. After that, in this cycle, we saw a 100% move from $54,000 to $109,000. That marked the first stop. In 2021, Bitcoin also doubled from $30,000 to $60,000, and in both cases this was followed by sideways consolidation. In the current cycle, the first correction was around 30%, followed by consolidation. In 2021, the correction was deeper, close to 50%, but the sideways phase was shorter. Then in 2025, Bitcoin moved higher again with a small fake dip here, followed by another rally that formed the second top. The same thing happened in 2021. Bitcoin rallied, had fake pullbacks, and then formed a second peak. Now we are at the climax. Bitcoin has dropped from $125,000 to $80,000 and is trading in a very narrow range of about 15%. I think about that, only 15% volatility over a 2-month period. In 2021, after the second peak, Bitcoin dropped almost 50% and traded in a much wider range, around 25%. During that period, alt season had already happened, altcoins were already at their highs, and only after that did Bitcoin fall from $48,000 to $16,000. So what do we have now? Almost the same situation. Bitcoin has already dropped and is trading sideways, but the key difference is that alt season never happened. Not even close. Altcoins are already sitting at the bottom. If we look at Bitcoin dominance, the main indicator that shows the health of altcoins, it started falling from its highs back in April 2021, right at Bitcoin's first peak. For the rest of that year, capital was rotating from expensive Bitcoin into altcoins. But the same logic, in this cycle, dominance should have started falling at the first Bitcoin peak around winter 2024. But instead, for almost 2 years now, dominance hasn't fallen at all. It's been moving sideways. So Bitcoin, we have already broken down, is moving almost one-to-one with the previous cycle. That means we are likely facing another month of sideways consolidation, followed by a move down towards the $20,000 area. But I'm convinced that in this cycle they deliberately drew the same pattern we saw in 2021, so that retail traders would recognize it and start reducing altcoins exposure in their portfolios. And logically that makes sense if everything repeats. Bitcoin is moving sideways now, so just like in 2021 there. And bigger drops should follow, which means people should sell their altcoins now just to recover at least 10-20% of what they invested. One part of retail will do exactly that, Another larger part won't sell their altcoins at loss because psychologically it's extremely hard to do. They currently hoping for maybe 4 or 5x move in altcoins just to get back to break even. But if Bitcoin continues moving sideways for another month or two, or even if on the weekly time frame we drop to around, for example, $65,000, that's where most people will completely lose faith in both the market and altcoins. At that point, Bitcoin could show a bounce, and during that bounce, altcoins could rally 3-4x. For most people, their portfolio would still be in drawdown, but instead of being down 80-90%, they would now be down only 20-30%. And with Bitcoin at around $70,000 and 3-4x move in altcoins would be perceived as a dead cat bounce. Selling at 20-30% loss would suddenly feel like a win, and people would call that alt season. Then when Bitcoin moves back toward, for example, $100,000, almost everyone will sell their altcoins, some even at break even, and that's exactly where the real alt season begins, because there will be no weak hands left. Those who sold altcoins when Bitcoin was at $70,000 won't buy them back because the price will already be higher than where they sold, and the majority will end up trapped psychologically. So there are two possible scenarios. Either we get pushed down through a fast squeeze and within a couple of weeks Bitcoin recovers back to the $100,000 area, or this sideways range between $85,000 and $95,000 continues. And then when Bitcoin is around $80,000, when everyone is already disappointed and waiting for a move down to $20,000, Bitcoin suddenly rips back to $100,000. And that's exactly when altcoins start moving. I also post my buys in real time and the project I'm farming for airdrops. Everything is in my Telegram channel, link in the description. So why do I still expect altcoins to rally even though Bitcoin has already topped and is unlikely to go to $150,000 in this cycle? Because the big player always pumps the main asset first and only then rotates into altcoins. In this cycle, Bitcoin has been trading near its highs for almost 2 years. That means we are in a distribution phase we have never seen before. They are selling Bitcoin and receiving USDT, and we can clearly see that on the Bitcoin dominance chart, dominance peaked back in June, but since then it's been falling, while Bitcoin itself is still trading around $90,000. So where does the big player move that capital? You could say nowhere, but that's not how markets work. Capital always flows from large assets into smaller ones, because that's where the multiples area. Funds want those returns too, and they will gradually start buying our altcoins. The fact that altcoins are down roughly 80% on average over the past years tells us two things. Either the big player is deliberately breaking our psychology. Let's take Atom as an example, but this applies to almost any altcoin. They push price below a 4-year accumulation range so that at even the smallest bounce we start selling. For example, if your average entry is $10, then even a move to $5 makes you reduce exposure. And once price reaches break-even at $10, you sell 80 or even 100% of your position. And then price goes another 5x higher, and only there does real distribution begin, because that's where, after a 30% correction, retail finally starts buying again. That's when people suddenly find technology and a future in altcoins. That's the first scenario. Altcoins were crushed by 80%, so they could later be sent 20-30x higher from current levels, while everyone sells early because they don't believe the move. The second scenario is much darker. Altcoins are being pushed towards zero with no real bounces, because the decision has been made to wipe out the altcoin market entirely. Maybe because of insider knowledge, regulation, restriction, or something else. Is it possible? Yes, I consider the probability very low, but it exists. So what do we do in that case? Selling altcoins right at the bottom doesn't make any sense. Instead, we need to shift focus and look at what other opportunities still exist in the market. For example, you can start working on projects before they launch, so you receive what is essentially free tokens and sell them regardless of what happens to altcoins. Right now, this is a great opportunity because over the past 6 months, most people have left the market, competition is lower, which means potential profits are higher. So where should you focus? First, Perp DEXes. Lighter launched recently and delivered around 60-80x on capital used. 10 points were worth roughly $800, and to earn those 10 points you needed about 2 hours per week. Do the math yourself. The Perp DEXes narrative isn't over yet. I would say it's only at the midpoint. My top picks where it's still easy to farm points are Ethereal and Variotional. Both have strong teams, are backed by top tier funds, and competition is still low. For example, on Ethereal, over the past week I traded for about 40 minutes per day and earned around 75,000 points. My trading P&L was basically flat. After fees I was down around $10, but those 75,000 points, based on different estimates, are worth around $1,200. I was trading inside a range, and when it turned into a rising range, I mostly traded from the long side. You can check the P&L, I followed the strategy strictly. The same applies to Variotional. You can use funding rate tracking sites to identify where to set up delta neutral positions. Because in this project, points are weighted more towards that strategy. I'm also farming Paradex. It's an interesting project with a solid team. The point price there is around 10 cents at an FDV of $500 million. And Hibachi as well, a strong team with backing from major funds. The estimated point value is around 50 cents at 215 million FDV. The rule is simple. If your farming cost is lower than the implied point value from your math, you are doing everything right, just keep going. If you are looking for a good exchange, I can recommend Max. You will get a good bonus, link in the description. Next, don't miss the prediction market meta. Right now there are 4 main players: Polymarket, Kalshi, Opinion, and Predict.fun. The first 2 are basically out. Competition is too high and token launches aren't happening anytime soon. Opinion is left, but the team has already confirmed that the TGE will be around Chinese New Year, so it's very soon. The project is likely to launch at an inflated valuation because it will be the first major prediction market token. Limitless doesn't really count. That means there is not much time left to farm Opinion. So that leaves Predict.fun. This is CZ personal project, and he is clearly supporting it heavily. I'm confident they won't delay the TG for long. If you start now, you are still early. Farming only started 3 weeks ago. The best strategy there is not to chase volume, but to farm points using limit orders on both sides of the same event. The closer your orders are to the settlement price, the more points you earn, but ideally the event should never resolve. Right now there are around 50,000 users in the project, so don't miss this opportunity. Over the past 2 weeks I have been farming using around $4,000 to $5,000. In the first week I earned roughly 900 points purely from limit orders. In the second week I earned significantly fewer points, but I'm still ranked in the top 4,000 users. On top of that, I also made money on the markets by exploiting inefficiencies. I tested different approaches. Points are not awarded for P&L, and they are not awarded for volume either. Points are given only for limit orders. That said, I still recommend running at least around $200 in weekly volume. On opinion, for example, you need about $200 in weekly volume just to be eligible for points. I believe there is a similar hidden requirement here as well. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.